If you've been injured, I'd like to help.
Spencer Callahan is the one to see. Call 387-2323.
LA filing number 16-7969.
WNXX Jackson, KNXX Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2 Baton Rouge. This hour brought to you by Spencer Callahan Injury Lawyers. LA 21 12681. Offices in Baton Rouge. Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Maybe you're not even working this week. In that case, I hope your off week is off to a good start. We're presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. And fired up, you're here with us here on this Monday. Short work week for a lot of folks. That includes us. We'll just be here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then we'll duck out for a couple days for the Thanksgiving holiday. Back in action, though, for LSU and Oklahoma on Saturday. But get this thing started. We'll have Denton Day coming up here in an hour and a half. Certainly got to talk LSU hoops. An incredibly dramatic win last evening at the Greenbrier. So we'll get into a little bit of that craziness in the Southeastern Conference on the football field. So plenty to do on this Monday as usual. Let's start the same way we start every single day.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. LSU beats Vanderbilt 24-17 in Tiger Stadium on Saturday night. Perfect day of weather on campus. Got a little chilly there in the second half. It was a great day and a great event inside Tiger Stadium, and LSU took care of their business. They just handled themselves the way they needed to handle themselves, and I thought that was a question entering the game. I thought it was reasonable to continue that question when you go 3 and out and then allow a 63-yard touchdown pass on the first play from scrimmage. That's not exactly a great start, and you could have really questioned whether or not LSU had checked out, and in fact, they had not. I thought LSU played a really, really strong football game, essentially from that point to the finish of the game. I thought 2 plays kept this from being great. I thought the 4th down, where LSU decides to go for it inside the 5-yard line, Garrett Nussmeier fires for Trey'Dez Green, and it just misses. And then the fake punt that Vanderbilt ended up converting there late in the game. If you take those 2 snaps and change them, it was really a clinical performance by LSU. You can't do that. You had an empty red zone trip because you didn't hit Trey'Dez Green, and Vanderbilt went down and scored a late touchdown to cut the lead to 7 because you weren't awake on the fake punt. But outside of those 2, it was really, really good for LSU. Vanderbilt's drives after the first touchdown, which was a 63-yard bomb on a double move that Zy Alexander fell for, was punt, it was a 3 and out, 6 plays, 50 yards, punt, turnover on downs on a 40-yard drive, 4 plays and a punt, a field goal drive that went 46 yards but took 12 plays to do it, and then a 3 and out. So that's 6 consecutive drives that just netted 3 points for Vanderbilt before the last drive of the game that ended up getting them a touchdown. Offensively, LSU was really, really good at sustaining drives, at keeping the football, at running it. Nussmeier was efficient, in rhythm, didn't put the ball in harm's way. You had an 8-play, 90-yard touchdown drive. You had a 12-play, 70-yard drive. That's the one that didn't cash there at the end. But you also had an 80-yard touchdown play that took 9 plays. You had a 77-yard drive that took 10 plays and scored a touchdown. Then you had a 74-yard drive that took 13 plays and was a field goal. And then when you got the ball with 5 minutes and 47 seconds to go, you salted the entire game away with a 66-yard drive that took 11 plays. That's about as good as you can be offensively. So I just thought that LSU did a ton of things very, very well in this game after 5 snaps. You had a 3 and out, and then the bomb, and then you got into it. The running game for LSU I thought was exceptional. They just stayed on schedule all night long. Josh Williams ran really physically and really hard. He kind of set the tone for what the night was going to be. On that first drive, he had the 16-yard catch and run where he broke 2 tackles in the right flat, and the next snap, he goes for the 20-yard touchdown run. He had 90 yards on 14 carries, and I thought was really good. He forced some missed tackles and got into the end zone. Caden Durham looked good as well. He didn't necessarily bust a long one, but he still averaged 4 yards a carry and rolled up 58 yards on the ground. And when LSU can run the ball like that, they're good. They have a good offense. It's when the running game gets bogged down and everything is thrust on the passing game that LSU has issues. And that never became the case against a pretty mediocre Vanderbilt defense on Saturday night. They tried to take the running game away, but they just couldn't do it. LSU continued to just hammer the ball away with the ground game, and that made everything easy in the air. Garrett Nussmeier, I thought, was comfortable the entire game. They gave him a really clean pocket to operate from. He completed 76% of his throws, 28 for 37. He threw for 332 yards and a touchdown. He did not turn the ball over, just took the one sack where Vanderbilt got pressure right up there in the A gap between the two redshirt freshmen on the offensive line. But I thought Nussmeier was really, really good. It was interesting, and I was talking about this on the postgame show with Marlon Favorite and Brandon Taylor back on Saturday night. It's like, man, there was a time where at LSU, if I would have showed you a stat line that said a quarterback completed 76% of his throws for 332 yards and a score without an interception, we would have gone, oh my God, that's one of the great performances we've seen from an LSU quarterback. But the standard has shifted so much over the last 5 years that wasn't even really a thought. Like, I got to so many things on the postgame show before we got to Garrett Nussmeier throwing for 332 on 76% completions without an interception. That's the standard has just kind of changed at LSU. But I thought he was really good. He got a lot of guys involved. Lacey and Anderson both had 6 catches. He checked the ball down very comfortably to Josh Williams and Caden Durham. They combined for 6 catches. C.J. Daniels tossed in his usual 4. Mason Taylor had 3 catches. Chris Hilton got involved. And Trey'Dez Green and Kamorian Pimpton both had a 5-yard reception. In all, 9 receivers touched the football for LSU. And again, they never got in any sort of trouble with the interception bug that has bitten them so often. So that was really good from an offensive perspective. Will Campbell, for his work at left tackle, was named SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week earlier today. I looked at the Pro Football Focus grade for him. He was in the top 5 on LSU's team yesterday. When I put that story up at LouisianaSports.net, he did not allow a single pressure in 39 dropbacks, which is really good work by Will Campbell. He's had a couple of PFF grades that weren't as good. Certainly the game against Florida comes to mind, but he was no, that was not Florida. It was Alabama, where the grade was not very good. But he was really good in the game against Vanderbilt, and he was recognized for that. And defensively, as far as LSU goes, they've never really let Pavia go nuts like he can. He did, get some yardage. He had the one where he snuck out of the pocket and there was nobody there, and he was able to go for 36 yards. But outside of that 36-yard run, he only had 43 yards total. So you're talking about 7 more yards after the one run. So Pavia was never able to do all the things that he wants to do, freelancing and making crazy plays. And Vanderbilt's running game was pretty mediocre. They ran for 122 yards on 24 carries. If you had told me before the game that Vanderbilt's only going to run for 122, they don't have a path to win. And that was the point I continued to make all of last week. Like, Vanderbilt really only has one punch. They run the ball, they stay ahead of the chains, they convert like crazy on third downs, and they stay in a close game and win it late. And LSU completely choked off third downs for Vanderbilt for the entire game. Vanderbilt only converted 2 of 10 third downs. They also had a 4th down that failed. So when you look at those critical downs, Vanderbilt was under 20% in converting those. And when you do that to Vanderbilt, they're not going to be able to hurt you otherwise. They're not an explosive team outside of the one big play on the first snap of the game. They didn't have any explosive plays. LSU was in position. They slowed down in the running game. They put Vanderbilt behind the sticks into some third and long distances, and Vanderbilt can't manage those. They just can't. And LSU was able to do enough to win the game. I don't know that there was like an outstanding defensive effort to point to. It wasn't like anybody had 3 sacks in the game or made a big play on an interception, a game-changing play. I thought, for the most part, it was just pretty solid work on defense. The most noteworthy defensive talking point from this game, I guess I should say, was the fact that Devon Keys played a lot of snaps in this game, and they're starting to get him to the field a little bit more. You saw Dominic McKinley play a lot in this game. This is the lowest snap count for Gio Paez since the beginning of the season. Some of those younger guys are getting to the field. It's been a little bit later than I imagined it would, and I thought that you'd see guys like Deshaun Spears and Kylan Jackson out there a little bit more as the calendar kind of went to Halloween. You haven't really seen that. But the freshman linebackers have kind of stepped forward and played a little bit. And Devon Keys had 5 tackles in this game, also was credited with a quarterback hurry. So thought that was pretty good. In total, like LSU just needed this game. They needed a game where some things go right. They needed a game that they were comfortably in front of, and I felt like they were. I never thought they were going to lose this game. And they needed a game that they won, and they got all of that done. It was not an issue where the stadium was a big factor. Nobody really came back to their seats after halftime. It was kind of dead in there. It was weird. I noticed the Vanderbilt reporter that I had on the pregame show was tweeting about how it was odd that it was his first Saturday night in Death Valley, the first time he had ever been inside Tiger Stadium, and it was a 1-score game with 5 minutes to go, and there was like nobody left. And that was expected. That's just the way things go. We talk about it all the time. If the weather's good and LSU's good and the opponent's good and national championship expectations are still on the table, then Tiger Stadium's as tough a place as there is in college football. When you start to pick away at some of those variables and you got a Vanderbilt team that nobody really cares about and LSU's goals are off the table, the stadium's not going to be incredible, and it was not on Saturday night. But I thought the team played really well from start to finish. I think that's a credit to a lot of the older guys. They did not mail it in, and that's something that we talked about last week. It doesn't happen very often. It does at times, and it certainly didn't with LSU. They were able to play well enough to get a 24-17 win. So is that something you're going to write home about, a 7-point win over Vanderbilt? Probably not. Is that a game we'll talk about for years to come? No. Was it one that LSU desperately needed at this point after a month of the bleeding on the field and the recruiting? Yeah, they needed it, and they got it done on Saturday night. 24-17 was the final. So we'll talk a little bit more about it coming up in 20 minutes. We'll have some sound from Brian Kelly, some of his thoughts on it, and we'll discuss it further. But we're now at that time of year where different sports are starting to take center stage, and LSU basketball yesterday played a wild one. It was as bad as it can be for about 18 minutes, and then it was really good, and then it had to be good for a little extra time in overtimes, and LSU got it done. So we'll talk about the weekend it was at the Greenbrier. That's coming up. This is the Genesis opening drive on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports, evolvept.com. If you've had a surgery or you've had an injury and you need some rehabilitation, you choose where you go. You can have a suggestion, but you can choose your spot, and you need to go to Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. Robbie Bolton and his team are first class. They are fantastic, and they're going to be hands-on. Far too often, physical therapy is just kind of a handout. Here's some sheets. There's some stretches you can do. We'll see how you're feeling next week. That's not going to be the case at Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. They will be hands-on from the time you walk in to the time you leave to make sure you're getting back to being your active self, whether it's a youth athlete in your home, whether it's somebody in their 60s trying to get back out on the golf course. If you're hurt and you're not able to do the things you want to do actively, Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports needs to be your stop. They're on Starring near Highland Road, right there behind Sammy's Grill. You can check them out online as well at evolvept.com. It's Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports, evolvept.com.
Let's talk turkey. Bayou Ford can get you in a new 2024 Ford F-150 with $15,000 off MSRP. $15,000 off America's favorite F-150 truck. All new Bayou automotive vehicles come with a complimentary 7-year powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered gold. Brack, your #1 park system in the nation.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram can get you in a new 2025 Ram 1500 truck with $15,000 off MSRP. $15,000 off the newly designed Ram 1500 truck. All new Bayou Automotive Vehicles.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Wild one from the Greenbrier yesterday, LSU in Central Florida, and what I felt was an important game for LSU. I told you on Friday, as they were getting ready to play against a really good Pitt team, I said, 2-0 would be phenomenal this weekend. 1-1 would be fine. That's kind of like holding serve. 0-2 would be a real disappointment. And that sounds very obvious, but I really felt that because last year, LSU's performance in November and December was such that it put them in almost an impossible spot when conference play came. They had to be perfect, essentially, in conference play to try to get onto the bubble. Keep in mind, LSU finished ahead of Mississippi State last year in SEC play. LSU was 9-9. Mississippi State was 8-10. Mississippi State made the NCAA tournament and didn't even go to Dayton. They were just in. And LSU was not even on the bubble because LSU was so bad in November and December. Remember, they lost to Nichols, which was the one that everybody remembers, but they were non-competitive at home against Kansas State. They were non-competitive in a game at Texas. They went to Syracuse and got dusted. They lost every game they had of any consequence, and they stepped on a landmine against Nichols. So you really gave yourself no chance, and you're trying this year to avoid that. Losing that game to Pitt is not going to hurt LSU at all. That Pitt team is good, and I think they showed it again yesterday against Wisconsin. That's a good Pitt team. They're old. They got good guards. They're going to be an NCAA tournament team, and they're going to be real competitive in the ACC. So losing that game, while I wish it was a little bit tighter, wasn't the end of the world. And losing to Central Florida wouldn't have been the end of the world, but it would have been, one, a wake-up call to what this team really is, and two, just further damaging your resume. And it looked like, as of about 2 minutes to play in the first half, that LSU was going to do this again. That first half that LSU played up until the 2-minute mark was about as bad a basketball as I have watched LSU play in a long time, and we are not that far removed from a team that went 2-16 in SEC play. It was atrocious in the first half. I mean, they got down 20 points with 2 minutes and 12 seconds to go. They couldn't make a freaking layup. You had guys getting to the rim and just missing point-blank layups. Just awful intensity on the defensive end. I rarely question teams' intensity and effort. I think that's oftentimes lazy. I generally hate the term came out flat because I think it just is a catch-all sometimes when your team just gets beat. But I just didn't think LSU looked awake. It was just awful. They were turning the ball over, lazy passes, it was just terrible. I, in fact, had a tweet typed out that I did not hit send on that said LSU has 51 halves of basketball left to play in the regular season, and I don't think a single one of them will be worse than this. It was awful for 18 minutes. And they kind of woke up there at the end. Reed had a layup, and then Victorious Miller hit a layup, and then he scored, and then he made a three. And that actually cut the lead to 13, which made it look manageable when it was 20 just a minute and a half before that. It turns out that you give up a layup there with 3 seconds to go to stretch it back out to 15. But it was just atrocious in the first half. And in the second half, they found something. And, of course, the biggest sequence in the game was when Sears hit 3 straight threes. That took LSU from down 12 to down 5 over the course of a minute 55 seconds. When Sears hit those 3 threes, you felt like LSU really had a chance with 6 minutes to go, down 5. And to credit LSU, they did it. And when they needed baskets pretty late in the game, they did a really good job of getting the ball to Jalen Reed for a couple there to cut it down. And then they got stops over the last 2 minutes of the game. After they gave up one layup, Central Florida didn't score for the last 2:27, and LSU was able to get the chest dunk. He's a freak of an athlete. And then Cam Carter made a bucket with 1:09 left, and then got to the foul line with 22 seconds left and cashed those in. So that was, I thought, good for LSU down the stretch to find a way to scrap and claw and to win the second half by 15 points to force overtime was impressive, because it didn't look like they were going to get that done. Overtime was weird, and full disclosure here, I'm not going to just blow smoke and fake you out here. I was in Wicked, the movie, when overtimes were going on. I had the stream on my phone, and the stream cut out, so I couldn't watch the end of triple overtime, but I was watching the game cast while Ariana Grande was singing on the screen in front of me. And I was like, oh, great, they're up 7. They won the game. So I didn't watch the last couple of overtimes, but gut check time for LSU, and every time they responded coming out and took the lead in those overtimes. Now, I wish they could hold the lead late when they get it with a couple of possessions to go in an overtime period, but they played well enough to win the game, and it's a gut check win. It doesn't matter that you played 18 terrible minutes. It doesn't matter that it took you 3 overtimes to get it done. They just did enough to get a win that I think is going to be okay. I don't think Central Florida is going to be a dominant team in the Big 12, but it is a Power 5 team, and it is a win away from the Assembly Center, and I think is one that's going to be a nice little piece on the resume. When you look at the box as a whole, Sears and Carter came alive. They were no-shows again on Friday, and when those two guys don't score, LSU's offense is a little bit toothless. Like, you just can't rely on Corey Chest and Curtis Givens and Derek Fountain and Jai Bailey to create a lot of offense. It's going to need to be, more often than not, Sears and Carter. And those guys were not very good on Friday, and you lost the game. Those guys were not very good early in the game against South Alabama, and you fell behind those guys at halftime. They have to run the ship on offense, and for Sears to hit 6 threes was massive in the game. And then Carter got buckets when you absolutely had to have them late in regulation. The other piece to the scoring puzzle here that's starting to emerge, and this is more than just a blip on the radar, this is becoming a trend. Victorious Miller can score, and he can score right now as a freshman. I wasn't sure how big his role was going to be this first season, because you look up and Sears and Carter and Bailey have played a ton of basketball and were always going to be your starting guards. I thought Tyrell Ward would be a key piece off the bench as a reserve wing who plays the same position as Miller. And once you start getting that far down the depth chart, it doesn't feel like you're going to see a huge impact. Well, that's wrong. Victorious Miller is going to play, because there are some guys in this rotation that can't create their own shot, can't create their own offense. And when those guys are out there, they need somebody to go out there and score. And Miller can absolutely do that. He can make threes. He can collect himself in the mid-range and knock down jump shots. He got to the rim, had a huge dunk out of a timeout that Matt McMahon drew up that was gorgeous. So he's becoming a scorer for this team, and that's something that they desperately need. On the other end, I didn't know how much Corey Chest was going to play. If you had told me really none, it would not have surprised me at all. But it's evident now that he's got to be in there. And he started this game on Sunday, and he's not going to shoot very much. He was 3 for 4, but he makes a big impact on the game. He pulled down 6 rebounds. He had 3 steals in this game. He blocked a shot. He's filling a role. And unfortunately, Damian Collins may miss some time here. We saw him get hurt on Friday, went up for a dump, jammed his shoulder. I haven't seen a report of how bad it is, but he certainly didn't play on Sunday. He may miss some time. He may miss significant time. That means Corey Chest is going to have to play a lot more, because that's the role that Corey Chest is going to have to play. The shot blocker, the rim protector, the rebound guy, energy player, trash guy, however you want to call it. Like, that's what Davian Commons was doing very well. Corey Chest is going to have to take on that role, and I think he's doing a really good job of it. He fouled out, and he only fouled out in 27 minutes of action, so he's going to have to clean that up a little bit. But that's just kind of part of it, because when you're that active, you're gonna get some fouls called on you. But I'm really pleasantly surprised with the impact that Miller and Chest have had early on. Those guys are going to have to be good. This team still is going to go the way that Jordan Sears and Cam Carter go, because they're the engine that runs this thing. But you've got to have other guys that can step up and do something here or there. And I was really encouraged by those two guys, and really have been for over a week now. So really nice job by LSU to go up there and hold serve. You've now got 2 wins over Big 12 opponents. You beat Kansas State in a true road game. You beat Central Florida in a neutral site game. I think those are going to help you resume-wise. You still got a couple of boxes to check here moving forward. You got Florida State that's coming up in a game that you'd really like to win as well. So there's still opportunity for LSU to do some more of the non-conference before conference play starts up in January. But I thought a game that LSU really needed to get, and it came down to a coin flip when you play multiple overtimes. You're talking about a shot here, a shot there, and LSU was able to get the wins that they needed. And now they can draw back on that comeback, the fact that they were down 15, the fact that they played so poorly in the first half of that game and were able to mount a charge and get back in it and win the game. You can kind of draw on that as you move forward. I thought a really, really encouraging Sunday for LSU after a disappointing Friday up there at the Greenbrier. Beck, I know you watched this one. I think it was a good win for LSU and one that, quite frankly, they needed to get.
Yeah, a couple of things. We talked about it last week. Jalen Reed needed to be more involved in the offense, especially when Carter and Sears aren't firing on all cylinders, and he did. He had 21 points, so he played well. And another thing I think was good to see is it wasn't necessarily good to see them play so poorly in the first half, but it was good to see how they were able to respond to that, because that's going to happen. And there's going to be games like this one where Sears and Carter aren't playing well, aren't scoring super well, and maybe in the first half, or maybe it's in the second half, who knows? But I'm just they need to be able to recover whenever they get down like that, and they showed the ability to do that. And also Victorious Miller, like you said, he's going to be very important for this team, and if he can come off the bench like he has and provide a little bit of scoring again whenever Sears and Carter aren't firing. So that's what I thought about it.
Something to monitor moving forward for this season is LSU's slow starts.
Yeah.
They got off to a really poor start in the game against Alabama State. Got off to a very poor start, obviously, in this game against Central Florida. They have gotten off to some
Charleston Southern.
Yeah, Charleston Southern was a bad one as well. They've gotten off to some shaky starts. They obviously played great right out of the chute against Kansas State, so it's not like it's every single game, but it's starting to develop a little bit of a trend. They played pretty well to start the game on Friday. They went to the half in good shape and then got away from there in the second half against Pitt. But they're going to have to come out and play a little bit better early in games, because you can't count on scrapping your way back from double-figure deficits every single game like LSU has been doing to this point. So a nice job from LSU in this game. You mentioned Reed in the 21 points, 7 of 8 from the foul line for Reed, which was very good. It's not the most beautiful stroke you've ever seen, but you can cash in 7 of 8. That's a good day at the office there. So solid work for LSU at the Greenbrier. They play again against Northwestern State coming up on Friday. So if you're coming down to watch LSU and Oklahoma on Saturday and you get in a night early, go see the basketball team play on Friday against Northwestern State. Tip-off for that game will be at 7 o'clock. I do want to remind y'all, a lot of you out there listened to Hoops with Hunt back in the day, launched that during the Will Wade era and was posting that daily. We have brought that back in essence. It's not going to be the same as it was. It's just going to be the basketball segments from this show. Every time I talk basketball on this show, Beck's going to clip it and throw it into the Hoops with Hunt feed. So it's the same place it was back in the day. That RSS feed is still there. It's still everywhere you find your podcast. So if you want basketball talk and you don't want to try to scroll through our show every day to find it, you can go to Hoops with Hunt the same as you always did and check it out right there wherever you find your podcast. So this segment we just did be clipped and put right there on the Hoops with Hunt feed in the coming hours. So check that out each and every day if you would. Hoops with Hunt is what you can search on your podcast apps. All right, we'll switch back to football transition. We'll hear some sound from Brian Kelly post-game and kind of get some more thoughts on LSU and Vanderbilt. Still got to talk about the SEC games of the weekend and how my picks did. Certainly got to talk about Jaden Daniels' kicker. We got to talk about the rest of college football Saturday and what comes this weekend on Rivalry Weekend with Denton Day. We'll do that an hour from right now. So don't go anywhere. It's a Monday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. When you think luxury, think Genesis of Baton Rouge. You don't see a ton of Genesis on the road. They're fairly new to the game, and the location, Airline and PQ, only been there a little over a year. But if you're in the market for a new vehicle, you should check out Genesis. Just put it on your list. You're going to be on Airline Highway anyway because all the dealerships are over there. Just make one pop in Airline and Pico across from Women's Hospital, and check out the folks at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car that's on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com, so you can start your journey there. There are so many wonderful features that are offered to you when you become a Genesis driver. You get a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. 10 years, 100,000 miles. How about 3 years of complimentary maintenance? And it's valet. They'll come get your car and perform the maintenance and bring it back to you. And they'll get you in a Genesis for the time in between. It's fantastic customer service. It's a fantastic experience driving a Genesis. Go try one. Check out one of their brand ambassadors. They'll walk you to the car. They'll get you in behind the wheel, and you can get there and test drive. Genesis of Baton Rouge, it's fantastic, fantastic line of vehicles, and every single one of them comes with fantastic safety features. The entire line was given the IIHA top safety pick. Some of them were top safety picks plus. Get on by Airline and Pico. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Monday shows brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com, GCOPnet.com. You've never given a ton of thought to why you have a specific copier, printer, scanner. Maybe you should. That's what the folks at Gulf Coast Office Products are here to do. Trey Beal and his team have different clients in every vertical market you can think of, whether you're in healthcare, banking, law, media company like us, education, whatever the case may be. They know what the needs are, and they have the resources that are available to fill them. So give them a call or check them out online, gcopnet.com. They're statewide, certainly have a wonderful team here in Baton Rouge that Trey Beal heads up. Give him a call. You will not regret it. It's Gulf Coast Office Products, gcopnet.com. I wrote my column after the game on Saturday on Josh Williams and about kind of his journey. And you're all very familiar with Josh Williams' story. We rehashed it when he came back for his 6th year, when he put on the number 18. But I still think it was worth writing that story because he's so counter to what this era of college sports has become, where folks are going places solely for the money and where folks are jumping from this program to this program. And if you don't immediately get a starting job, you bail. And then if you do get a starting job and then someone else comes in, you bail. And Josh Williams has just never been about any of that kind of stuff. He's a guy that just wants to play for LSU, and whatever that role is, he wants to fill it. And I thought that Saturday night he was fantastic. Brian Kelly spoke after the game about his 6th-year senior running back.
He ran through the face of a number of defenders. It was physicality. It was want to. It was desire. It was all those things in one. It was just a guy that was, committed to no matter what, the first guy's not going to bring me down. And he set a tone for our entire team, a toughness on offense and a resolve that these guys showed this week. And I think he was one of our leaders this week, spoke up many times. He spoke up before our meal today when we meet with our team. He really was committed to making sure that we found a way to win this game.
I completely agree with Brian Kelly in that just Josh Williams set the tone, because the tone had kind of been set by Vanderbilt. They got LSU off the field in the 3 and out, and then they hit a big 63-yard touchdown pass in the first play of the game. And at that point, you've got a disgruntled stadium. You've got a team that's in a funk. They've been down for a month. You've got the Bryce Underwood cloud. I mean, it's just everything was bad. And they dump him off a 16-yard pass that he breaks 2 tackles on, and then he busts up the right side for a 20-yard touchdown and kind of set the tone and reestablished LSU's footing in the game. And it was physical, and he did run tough. He ran tough the entire game. Even the second touchdown, he was running through tacklers into the end zone. And yeah, I do agree that Josh Williams very much set the tone. He was part of the guys that called that players-only meeting back a week from today, back on Monday. It was him and Greg Penn and Will Campbell, and they were the guys that stepped up and talked to the team saying, hey, we still got 2 games to play for. We got to get these 8 wins. And I thought he walked that walk after talking the talk with his effort in the game on Saturday. Kelly then was asked, was this kind of a statement game from Josh Williams?
Absolutely, and he said that. He goes, this is what we expect here at LSU. This is what I expect. And everybody did. I mean, he was echoing the feelings of the entire team, but he could do it from a position of experience. He could do it from a position where he's been down this road before and was able to lend that to everybody else in the program. And I think it really affected some of the younger players in a positive way. We saw some things from our younger players this week that we hadn't seen, maturity from them. And he set the table early on, and then he backed it up tonight, and that's what you love to see.
When I think about Josh Williams' journey, and I think about the guy who, in an era where everyone's holding their hand out to get money to go somewhere, Josh Williams had scholarship offers and decided to turn those down, and he paid money to come play for LSU because he wasn't on scholarship. He's paying tuition to come play at LSU. Like in the NIL era, it's usually the other way around. No, he said, I'm going to go play at LSU. And he earned a scholarship after 1 year on the scout team. And then he becomes LSU's leading rusher in 2022. He led LSU running backs in yards in 2022. And then what happened in 2023? Well, they brought Logan Diggs in, and he became the number 1 back. How many guys who become a starter, become the team leader in rushing, and then have a guy come in and take your role, how many stick around after that? Not very many. And Josh Williams did. And then he came out, and this year, Caden Durham kind of became the lead back, and is a freshman. And you could have just pouted and said, all right, well, I'm done, which players will do, and opt out. Well, no, that's not what he did. He just showed up and became a team leader and wore number 18, and then they called on him in this game, and he changed the tone and tenor of the game with his physical runs. He also did a great job of catching the football, and Brian Kelly was asked about getting Josh Williams and the running backs a little bit more involved there in the passing game.
Well, we were running a lot of 4 vertical, and they were carrying those inside seams with their linebackers. So the linebackers were running with those inside seams, which created a big disparity between the depth of the linebacker that was trying to get into the seam route and our check down. So we said, look, if they carry the seams, just check it down. We're going to get 12 to 15 yards, and we might have averaged that on our check downs tonight.
I thought Gary Nussmeier did a great job of checking the ball down to both backs. I mentioned that at the top of the show, and that's something that he needs to do. That keeps LSU in a rhythm and moving the ball offensively, and LSU stayed in that rhythm really all night. LSU absolutely controlled time of possession when you consider the opponent. Vanderbilt was as good as any team in the SEC at time of possession. That's one of the punches they can use to try to beat you, and LSU had the ball for 34 minutes in this game. Vanderbilt only had it for about 26 minutes. And you consider that LSU did that because they were 8 of 13 on third down, and a lot of that was due to Josh Williams, his running and his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield as well. It was just really, really good stuff from LSU's offense and from Josh Williams. Josh Williams has 180 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game coming up on Saturday. But maybe this is kind of the last time that he spearheads the LSU offense inside Tiger Stadium. And it was really cool, I thought, for him to have a couple of moments like that and to be recognized by his coach like that after a game like that, because his story is a good one. There just aren't going to be very many like this moving forward. One, not a lot of guys are going to be able to hang around for 6 years because of COVID years moving forward. And 2, you just don't have a lot of walk-ons, turn starters, turn second-teamers, turn number 18s in their 6th year in this era. It's kind of a unicorn at this point. And so I just thought it was really nice that Brian Kelly mentioned him, and I just thought it was relevant to enough to write my column on it after the game. I thought he was fantastic in the game on Saturday night. Josh Williams' final stat line in the game, he goes for 90 yards on the ground. He also reeled in, was it 4 catches for 61 yards, and totally had 151 total yards and 2 touchdowns in the game. Just a great effort for number 18, Josh Williams, in the game on Saturday night. All right, we'll come back and we'll close out hour number 1. It's a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been running the shop for 40 years. Her son Justin now kind of taking the reins of the sales manager over at Boudreaux's Electrical. If you need a Generac home standby generator, this is the number you need to call. 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. And if you hear that 985 and go, wait, I'm in the 225, they're not going to be able to come. Yeah, they will. They can come to you. And they've also got a location in Gonzales. It's 225-300-9389. Now, you got a lot of folks that are going to have a lot of family members in for Christmas. If you want to make sure that you don't lose power with the entire family at the house, you need a Generac home standby generator. Power outages are inevitable in our part of the world. Hurricane season, winter storms, which got us last year, even those summer thunder showers that come through and they can just knock the power out for a couple of hours. It's just a complete nuisance. Avoid that with a Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Give them a call, those 2 numbers I gave you earlier, or check them out online, boudreauxelectrical.com, boudreauxelectrical.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram can get you in a new 2025 Ram 1500 truck with $15,000 off MSRP. $15,000 off the newly designed Ram 1500 truck. All new Bayou Automotive vehicles come with a complimentary 7-year powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques, Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Yeah, LSU women's basketball team is down in the Bahamas right now. They fell behind significantly in the first quarter. They lost the first quarter 24-11. I'm not a mathematician, but I know that 24 times 4 is 96. They're on pace to give up 96 points. I'm imagining that didn't make Kim Mulkey super happy. They fought back and got it to within 10 at halftime. It was 26-36 at halftime. They play on in the third quarter now down there against Washington in the Bahamas, so we'll keep you updated on that score. But the Huskies putting it on LSU a little bit early down there in Nassau. Also a housekeeping issue because of the Thanksgiving week. The Brian Kelly show is going to be tonight from TJ Ribs, Chris Blair and Brian Kelly, 7 o'clock right there on Acadian Thruway. So if you want to stop on by or check it out on Eagle 98.1, you can certainly do that. Usually on Thursdays. Thursday's the holiday this week. So tonight, the final edition of the Brian Kelly Show in this regular season will be from TJ Ribs. Saw this and wanted to kind of cover it here at the end of the first hour. ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, was on the SI Media with Jimmy Traina podcast, and they addressed Lee Corso on game day moving forward. And Burke Magnus had this to say: listen, we're going to do what we've done now for a couple of years running, which is we're going to have a conversation with him after the season and see where things are. He's a special guy. He's one of the nicest men you will ever meet. He's a great listener, and he's been absolutely iconic on the show. We're going to get through the playoff this year, let everyone decompress, and then we'll have some time to figure out what we're going to do for next season. It kind of felt like a couple weeks ago when they were in Bloomington that it was kind of a tribute to Lee Corso. Now, certainly he coached there, and it was the first time game day had been in Bloomington, and you knew that was going to be a great thing for Corso, but they brought out a lot of tributes to him, and it just kind of felt like that was close to the end. And I don't know if it is or not. Here's my thing. I see people, texting and tweeting, and you understand that when Corso had that stroke a few years ago, his speech was always noticeably slurred, and he's 89 years old, and at times the delivery is very, very poor. There's no question about that. But I hear people say he's tarnishing his legacy, or that I just think that's BS. Lee Corso can get on College Game Day as long as he wants to, in my estimation. He's always got a really, really reduced role in the show, and I understand that it's tough for him to get through some of those picks, but it just doesn't bother me. There's 3 decades of just iconic memories with Lee Corso, and the fact that his last 3 or 4 years are different from that doesn't mean anything to me. If he wants to still come on in the last segment and put a Brutus the Buckeye head on or dress like a leprechaun, I'm going to be fine with it as long as he can still do it. And we all understand that he's certainly got more years in the rearview mirror than he does that he's looking forward to. But I'm perfectly fine with them trotting Lee Corso back out there. He there's so few people that have truly been like the face of a sport and created a brand like that. And Vital and Lee Corso are two guys that have done that. And the memories are so good, and the headgear is so famous, and we can't kick off the day of football until he does that. And so I realized that McAfee's kind of taken the mascot role, if you will, and I realized that it's tough for Corso to get some words out, but like that just doesn't change the last 30 years for me, that the last 3 have been difficult. Like I don't care, Beck. I mean, where are you on that situation?
Yeah, I'm with you. For me, it's different. Like if you're comparing Lee Corso and Dick Vitale. To me, Dick Vitale when you're calling a game, it's important to be able to keep up and all that.
No doubt.
So to me, that is a bit much in terms of like the fact that he was still calling games for so long and he was just struggling. With Lee, it's like, they're gonna feed him lines, they're gonna feed him all the stats and everything.
Kirk helps him out.
Yeah, Kirk helps him out. But that's fine. Like it's an entertainment product, and I'm sure he still loves doing it. So I don't have a problem with it.
I thought it was absurd, quite frankly, when Joe Paterno was on the sideline with no headset on.
Yeah.
Or he's coaching from up in the press box. Like, I thought that was ridiculous. Like, but he's the coach of the team. This is a guy who's sitting there on an inconsequential television show. And to be frank, like, Game Day is a great product. I love it. I like McAfee. I like the field goal stuff. I'm good with the breakdowns. I think Saban does a wonderful job. I love the fact that they can go to campuses and you can kind of, like, I loved when they were in Boone, North Carolina last year. It was such a great showcase of, like, I don't know anything about Boone, North Carolina, but they were there and it was just so beautiful, and like the people were fired up to be there. But the fact of the matter is, like, Game Day is more of like a routine thing to me than like I'm just fiending for the information that they're going to give me. Like, it's purely like an entertainment type deal, and Corso's only on it for like 8% of the show. He comes in for the first segment, a couple, and then maybe one in the middle of the show, and then they bring him on for picks so he can tell the one guest, not so fast, my friend, and use the pen and then put the headgear on. Like, it doesn't, in my estimation, completely hamper the show.
No.
And the show is not that big a deal. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It's just part of the routine. While I'm scrambling eggs in the morning and everybody's waking up and they're playing with Myers in the living room, like, I just have Game Day on. Oh, where are they today? Oh, they're in Chapel Hill. Like, whatever. Like, and so, yeah, if he was on for the entire 3 hours and couldn't get a sentence out, like, okay, we could have a conversation. The fact that it's that he's just not, and then the thing that I'm pushing back in is just like, don't tell me that like his legacy is hampered because the last like 3 years have been tough. Like, I don't think ESPN's going to tell him you have to stop. They've already obviously very much reduced his role. He already misses some shows because of travel. They went out west earlier this year, and he didn't make that trip because of his health. It is what it is. It was really tough when they tried to do the COVID shows and he was in the backyard and couldn't hear anybody. Like, that was really tough. But as long as he can be there and Kurt can kind of help him and guide him through, and he can make the picks and read the 5 stats off, like, I think that's just fine for me. And so maybe this is his last year, and if it is, I hope that they do something really, really special for him, because that's going to be something that you'll remember forever. It's just the fact that he created this iconic brand just out of his energy and passion and love for the sport. And that doesn't go away because he has trouble getting some words out here and there. So just wanted to kind of chat about that. I saw it come up on my Twitter feed and wanted to discuss that briefly. I'm trying to check for the continuing basketball scores, but I think they forgot to put the score in their latest graphic on Twitter. I'm following along on Twitter for the women's basketball score.
They are down 4 right now, heading into the 4th.
Okay. Oh, there it is. There's the graphic. Okay, so they're chipping away. I mean, it was bad. They were down 13 after a quarter, and now they've chipped it away to 4. So for the second consecutive day, an LSU basketball team gets off to a brutal start, and now they're finding their way through it. And I think some of these things are good for LSU, both on men's and women's. The women have not played a very challenging opening schedule. Kim Mulkey's been very open about that. She talked about it with me on the pregame show a couple of weeks ago when she was on for the Alabama game. She's like, yeah, look, we haven't played a very difficult schedule. We're trying to figure out kind of what we are, and this is a good opportunity, I think, against a good Washington team. We'll see if they can close it out down 4 as they go into the 4th quarter from the Bahamas. I'm not sure if you can watch that game. I think you can stream it. You can. It's on Flow Sports, so you can stream it. If you check out the LSU women's basketball Twitter feed, you can see the link to it right there online. So y'all can check that out. If you missed any of the first hour of our show, you can always check that out on demand. We've got anywhere you find your podcast, you can find us, whether that's Spotify, Google, Apple Podcast, wherever. You can certainly find it on our website as well, 1045ESPN.com. Every show from Off the Bench, Live at Lunch, Hunt Palmer Show, as well as After Further Review, are always cataloged there in their entirety. If you're just looking for little snippets and segments here, you can find them in a multitude of ways. You can find us all our Saints content at Hunt on Saints, all of our LSU content football-wise on Hunt on LSU. And as I mentioned earlier in the hour, if you want basketball content for LSU men's basketball, you can always find that at Hoops with Hunt, the old podcast. And we brought it back. It's just the segments from this show that we repurposed in that way. So you can search with Hoop with Hunt. Subscribe to that, and you can get our basketball content each and every day. Open the show talking about LSU and Vanderbilt and how LSU performed on Saturday. I thought it was a really, really good performance from the Tigers. Kind of went over all that went into that. Talked about LSU's basketball comeback yesterday at the Greenbrier for a triple overtime win. And then some thoughts on Josh Williams and just how good he and the LSU running backs were on Saturday at 1:30. You can catch all that on demand wherever you find your sound. I'm fired up for hour number 2 as well. Denton Day is going to be with us at the bottom of hour number 2. Denton does a great job with Sirius XM. He's the host of College Football Overtime after all the games go final. Does a great job there of covering national college football stories. So we chat with him about things kind of outside of our little Baton Rouge bubble every single Monday. We'll do that at 2:30. And he's also a big Washington Commanders fan, and they just absolutely gave one away yesterday because their kicker couldn't make a freaking extra point. He missed 2 of them, and they end up coming up a point short, and then Dallas tacks on a late touchdown there. But we'll talk a little bit about that with Denton. When we come back, my SEC picks from Friday. We're getting to crunch time. We were exactly 500 going into the week. How did things emerge? Becca let us know. We'll talk some SEC football. After Sports Center, you're listening to a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show presented by Gulf Coast Office Products.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Our tub gets used every single night. Myers Man bath time somewhere around 6:45. We try to get him into the tub. If you don't do that and you don't ever use your tub, this kind of old, dingy, you just stand in it because it's a shower, well, take it out. Put in a gorgeous glass walk-in shower. Completely transform the look and the functionality of that bathroom. Add a little value to your home. You can do that with David Duvall and his team at One Bath and Closets. Those tub-to-shower conversions are quick. They're painless. And if you're a little concerned about the price tag, well, they got financing options. 18 months, 0%. So don't let that deter you. Go get that done today. Start that process at onebathandclosets.com. Get your free consultation. David can tell you what they can do for you. Check them out online. It's onebathandclosets.com. You can get the consultation. You can check out the reviews from their satisfied customers and see pictures of their great work. It's One Bath and Closets. Check them out. onebathandclosets.com.
Let's talk turkey. Bayou Ford can get you in a new 2024 Ford F-150 with $15,000 off MSRP. $15,000 off America's favorite F-150 truck. All new Bayou automotive vehicles come with a complimentary 7-year powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. On a conference call with reporters today, Giants coach Brian Daboll said he spoke with Malik Neighbors last night and again this morning after the star rookie receiver expressed his frustration following the blowout loss to the Buccaneers. He was among the players who did call their play soft. Daboll disputed those claims, said guys played hard, played with effort, just didn't do enough. For Giants ownership, this is bothersome, says ESPN NFL analyst Herm Edwards.
We have a team right now with no rudder. They have no direction. And players now, some of your star players are starting to sense that. And I think if you're ownership now, you have to sit back and figure out what direction you're going with this football team. Whether you have a GM in place, a head coach in place, what direction do you want this team to go in?
Herm Edwards on Carlin versus Joe. Ravens All-Pro linebacker Roquan Smith with a hamstring injury won't likely play on Monday Night Football against the Chargers, 8 Eastern, ABC and ESPN. NBA Celtics center Kristaps Porzingis plans to make his season debut tonight against the Clippers. He's been out recovering from foot surgery.
Guess what? Discover's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/credit card.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. Denton Day, 30 minutes from right now on the national scene inside college football. We'll talk a little Saints coming up here as they get ready for a home game with the Rams coming up on Sunday afternoon. Short work week for us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Just Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday we'll be out for Thanksgiving on Thursday, and we will also be out on Friday, except for Live at Lunch. They will do their show from Rufino's as scheduled normally, but the rest of us will be out. I'm going to be on the golf course. I'm very much looking forward to that. All right, we entered the week in SEC Pick'ems straight up 500, right at 500, and we knew we had to close strong if we were going to get it to the house over 500 for the year. Well, Beck, it doesn't sound like we did that on Saturday, did we?
Nope, we did not.
3-6, is that what I'm reading?
Yes, that is correct. 3-6.
We did not get home with Ole Miss minus 12.5. They lost. We did not get home with Georgia minus 42. That was really close. We did not get home with with Wofford minus 42.5. South Carolina scored with how much time on the clock?
Yeah, not much.
God, terrible. Don't cover that,
8
Coach
seconds.
Beamer. 8 seconds. We're scoring a touchdown to push that over the number. The Hogs could not cover 22. They won by 21. I also had Mississippi State plus the 8. They got destroyed by Missouri. I had Bama minus 13.5. They lost by 100. So that is 6 losses. I did cover with Auburn plus 2.5. They beat Texas A&M. I did cover with Kentucky plus 20, and I did cover with the Vols laying 40.5 after a pretty crummy start to the game against UTEP, but they put the pedal to the metal, and I did say on Friday I didn't think UTEP would score. They did not score any points. So I should get double points for that. I don't believe you're going to do that for me. But 3-6, not going to get it done. Let's talk about the games, though, because I thought that it was some fascinating stuff. Credit Florida. Absolute credit to Florida. Held this thing together. The players played hard. The fans were into it against LSU and Ole Miss, and they delivered with a couple of really nice home wins that have kind of steadied things under Billy Napier in Gainesville. I thought that one of the big factors in this game was Lane Kiffin's aversion to kicking field goals. He has been like this his entire coaching career, so this is not new news. And the way that he is operating has gotten him to heights that Ole Miss really hasn't seen in previous administrations. But this team could have allowed him to coach differently. This is the best defense he's ever had. They're really good up front. They're the best run defense in the league. They lead the country in sacks. Like, they're good on defense. And that means 3 points can really be a big deal. When he was getting into these big shootouts because his offense was awesome, the defense stunk, yeah, go for it on 4th down all you want. But when you've got a defense that's capable of shoving Georgia into a locker last week and holding them to 10 points, you can kick some field goals. And he wouldn't do it. He turned away 2 short field goals to snap it to his defensive tackle who was bouncing the ball outside and getting stopped. And it cost him, because if you kick those 2 field goals and ifs and buts and all that kind of stuff and the butterfly effect, I get it all. But that's 6 points, and all of a sudden you don't have to go down and get a touchdown at the end. A field goal may help you there. And it's too late now because they've got 3 losses and they're not getting at large and they're not going to Atlanta, so their chances of getting to the college football playoff are essentially cooked. But I just don't understand why he couldn't just tweak that a little bit and suggest, hey, we've got a good defense. We need to lean on that. Because the analytics that he's looking at are talking about the probability of converting the 4th down. They don't take into effect how good your defense is. And I think he needs to weigh that sometimes, and he didn't, and it cost him. And DJ Lagway made some incredible plays early in that game, some highlight reel throws, and they stayed in that game for the entirety of it, and they took it to Ole Miss and won that football game 24-17, and they deserved it. I think that Lane Kiffin overthought this a little bit, and going for those 4th downs really, really hurt. Of course, he did it in Baton Rouge as well, and they got stopped early in the game. So big loss for Ole Miss. Maybe the most impactful loss for Ole Miss since 2003. I think that's probably fair to say. I was listening to Locked On Ole Miss, which called it the biggest choke job in the history of the school. That's a strong statement, but it is what it is. That's a tough loss for the Ole Miss Rebels. Speaking of losses, Alabama came up with another one. I've got a feeling we're about 54 minutes away from hearing about that on After Further Review. But that's just a dreadful performance by Alabama. To score 3 points against Oklahoma is atrocious. And again, this goes back to my ranting and raving 3 weeks ago about Jalen Milroe's performance in Tiger Stadium. He didn't do that to anyone else. And that includes Oklahoma, where Jalen Milroe ran the ball 15 times for 7 yards. Oh, by the way, he threw it 26 times. He completed 11 of them, and he threw 3 picks. Against LSU, he's sitting back there on 3rd downs in the rain, completing halfback option passes and carving LSU up. What did LSU do to unlock that guy for 2 years? We talked about it the week prior. He played old Missouri. He was inaccurate, looked uncomfortable. Shows up against LSU. Looks like he's destined for New York for the Heisman. He was awful on Saturday. Absolutely awful. Again, the statistics, 11 of 26, 3 interceptions, 15 carries for 7 yards. Alabama lost a game to Oklahoma in which the Sooners threw for 68 yards. Jackson Arnold threw for 68 yards. He ran the ball 25 times. It was basically like a 1A high school football team that was snapping it to their athlete every time and just letting him run. And Alabama just couldn't muster anything on offense to counter it. Oklahoma got the lead, and they just said, all right, we're just going to sit on this thing. And they did. And Alabama never found anything on offense. And Alabama fans are now realizing, I think, if they hadn't previously, that they now live in the world with everybody else. They live in the world with everybody else. They can get bad losses. They can lose to bad teams, bad weeks, bad seasons. They're about to find out that they actually play bowl games outside of the playoff. It's going to be new territory for the Crimson Tide fans. It's your birthright to just be awesome every year has very little to do with that Crimson A. It has almost everything to do with the former coach. And now he's gone. So welcome to the party with the rest of us. We have to sweat it out most Saturdays. We have some real disappointing Sunday mornings. You hadn't dealt with that in 20 years. Well, here it comes. Because Kalen DeBoer is a good football coach, but he's not the greatest football coach in the history of college football. And they're not just going to roll out of bed and beat everybody by 40 anymore. And they certainly didn't on Saturday. They looked awful in that game against Oklahoma. One more SEC game of note that I wanted to briefly mention. Of course, the highlights there were two playoff hopefuls in Alabama and Ole Miss losing and essentially knocking themselves out. The other was Texas A&M in that same vein. And I thought A&M was going to win that football game the second they scored their second touchdown to cut it to 7 because they fell behind 21-0. And when they got it to 21-14, I went, okay, Auburn's toast, and that A&M's just going to come back and win the game. And credit the Aggies for having the resilience to come back and do that. I thought Hugh Freeze made a terrible decision not to go for 2 in the second overtime when he had opportunity to win the game with a 2-point conversion. I thought it was foolish to go ahead and kick it again. Then you get into that crazy just 2-point play situation, and which is what they ended up getting into. And Auburn, quite frankly, needed an A&M guy to flat drop the football. I mean, Myers is 3 in next month. He probably catches that one. I mean, right in the hands, right off the face mask of Amari Daniels, and he can't make the catch on Philly special. But I thought Hugh Freeze should have tried to end it earlier, and he didn't quite get it done. So Texas A&M loses, but really, did it even matter? Did that loss even matter? Because they are going to the SEC championship game if they beat Texas. And I don't believe if they would have lost the SEC championship game at 10-2, meaning they beat Auburn and beat Texas to get into the SEC championship game and lose that game, I don't think they were going to get in the college football playoff. So really, that loss for A&M isn't all that consequential unless there's a scenario that I'm just not considering. They just got everything on their racket now with Texas. The thing that they don't have is momentum because they've lost their last 2 games of consequence to South Carolina and now to Auburn. They had a non-conference game and a bye week sandwiched in there, but a loss that looked like it was debilitating, and then you step back and reassess the situation and realize that, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because as long as they beat Texas, they're going anyway, and they had to win the SEC championship game to get into the college football playoff anyway. So that loss, I don't believe, was all that consequential. Marcel Reed played pretty good in this game. He did have the interception, but ran it for 66 yards, threw it for 297. I thought it was a pretty gutty effort by A&M to come back and equalize things, but Auburn in the end outlasts them because A&M didn't catch the football in the overtime. So those are the big impactful moments from the SEC over the weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about all that with Denton Day coming up in a few minutes, about 15 from right now. Come back and talk about the Saints. Should they go get a quarterback that was recently released? I'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Got to make LeBear's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters this season. Getting down to the end of it in college football. If you want to watch all the action on Saturday, no better spot than ESPN Bet inside LeBear's. They got great food, fantastic drink specials, an incredible game-watching experience, a ton of games on at one time. You can gamble on them at the sportsbook window right behind you. There's a blackjack table there as well. Great group seating as well as some individual spots. All of it is fantastic over at ESPN Bet inside LeBear's. And you got 1 week to go in the Cover 5 contest, and I've got great news for you. You are probably beating me in the Cover 5 contest, even if you're not even competing, because I'm now in the negative because I've been that bad over the last few weeks. But you can download one more week here, LABR SEC 24, and play for the final week, and you can win weekly prizes. If you're not a member, get the Pin Play app today. LeBear's Baton Rouge, your live sports headquarters. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-589-9966 for help.
It's no secret. The best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-26.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com, GCOPnet.com. For all your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products, the #1 office products distributor, according to the Baton Rouge Business Report. Reach out to our guy, Trey Beal, at GCOPnet.com and see what he can do for you. They've got offices throughout the state. They've got enough resources to handle any issue that you've got here in South Louisiana and up into the 318 as well. Fantastic people, fantastic company over there at Gulf Coast Office Products. I know if you're a business, you've got a printer, copier, scanner somewhere, and if you don't know why you have the one that you have, you might want to check with them and make sure that you've got exactly what you need to best meet your needs. It's Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com here in Baton Rouge. All right, there's a new odds out for Daniel Jones and where his next landing place is going to be over there at Bet Online, and the Saints are at 25-1. They're on the list here, and I looked at that, and it's not a terrible thought because the Saints have brought in former starters to be backups over the years. It started obviously with Jameis Winston was here, Teddy Bridgewater was here as well. Brought in Andy Dalton. They've had some guys that have come in that have been starters elsewhere that are now coming off that huge contract and are career backups at that point. And it feels like that's Daniel Jones' destiny. I don't think there is anybody that's really rushing to make him the face of their franchise at this point. That's fair to say. And the Saints certainly aren't in that position right now, although we don't know exactly what Derek Carr's future holds. But is it worth bringing him in as a potential backup and a low risk guy to bring in, very similar to Jameson and Teddy Bridgewater? I just think no. I right now, as I look at the Saints, I think that they've probably got a quality NFL backup on their roster. I don't think they've got a future starter between Spencer Rattler and Jay Kaner. I think that's ambitious. But I think there's a realistic chance that one of those two guys is a very solid backup quarterback. And the Saints have needed backup quarterbacks over the years. You're talking about a franchise that had Drew Brees get injured a little bit later in his career. We've seen, obviously, Derek Carr go down both years. He's been the starter here. Like, the backup quarterback is somebody that you need at times to come in, be functional, and help you stay afloat. The Saints clearly did not stay afloat this year, so that would be one strike against these two guys as potential backup quarterbacks, but I think they have a chance. I don't think that there's enough potential upside with Daniel Jones to bring him in to hope on a wishing star that he becomes, hey, the next starter after Derek Carr moves forward. You have a new coach coming in January or February, and that coach is very likely going to immediately begin assessing the quarterback situation and trying to find out who he wants to align himself with. Maybe it's Derek Carr. Maybe it's somebody in the draft. Maybe the Saints think they can throw something up in free agency for somebody who's toward the back end of their career that might be available in the way that Kirk Cousins became available, in the way that Phillip Rivers locked on someone. Like, just name your potential source. The new coach is probably going to try to address quarterback in some capacity because Derek Carr is probably only going to be the quarterback one more year, if I had to guess. I just don't think Daniel Jones is the answer to any of these questions. I don't think he's a significant upgrade over Rattler or Haener. I don't think he is a likely budding starter. I don't think he really brings much of anything. Daniel Jones is what he is because some organization decided to take him early in the first round. You've seen some of these draft takes. I mean, Todd McShay's was pretty famous on Twitter saying, I don't know what the Giants are seeing here. Everything that I see on tape suggests he's a backup quarterback in this league. They took him in the top 10 picks. And so it's not a guy that I think a lot of teams in the league are clamoring to bring in to their organization. He's made a ton of money. The Giants are going to foot the vast majority of that. But to me, there's not really an upside here with the Saints. If they did not have a backup quarterback, I would maybe suggest that that's a guy that you could bring in on the cheap. But they've got a couple of guys that they've invested some time and resources into, and I think are plenty good enough to make things happen. So I don't see a viable path for Daniel Jones coming to New Orleans. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. So essentially what I'm telling you here is 25-1 odds sounds like a pretty good return. I wouldn't place that wager down at betonline.ag. But you can read about it right now at louisianasports.net. Our guy Ross Jackson did a great job of kind of breaking down what he thought about the situation as it revolves around the Saints. So you can check that out over at louisianasports.net right now. I have had a chance a little bit earlier to read an article on The Athletic. I got through about 90% of it, so there's still some that I've got to get through, but I'm still just going to briefly mention it because it's going to get a lot of run in LSU fan circles. If you want to read it, it's on The Athletic. Ralph Russo just started with The Athletic a couple of weeks ago, and he's obviously been working on this story about Brian Kelly for a while, talking about the fit in Baton Rouge and the culture and the program, and he got a few people connected to the program to speak in terms of anonymity. He also got Charles Turner, former center, on the record, saying that Brian Kelly did not have a great personal relationship with Charles Turner. They didn't speak a lot. You had to book an appointment to talk to Brian Kelly instead of the open door policy that Ogeron had. There are a lot of things that Brian Kelly has implemented that worked at Notre Dame that some people feel aren't working in Baton Rouge. And I read through the story, and I just didn't see a lot of substance to what was being suggested. Basically, the framework of this story that Ralph Russo put together was like, yeah, Brian Kelly's lost 4 games in year 3, and he didn't usually do that at Notre Dame, and a lot of people kind of don't think it's working, And I got some people to say that maybe it's not the best. Like, there's nothing like that I read, and I haven't gotten to the very end of it, that's like a pointed example of something that's an issue. It's a lot of cloudy, things are not super awesome writing. And I don't think it's like a hit piece. I don't think it's poorly written. I think it's just lacking a punch of some sort. And for whatever reason, Brian Kelly is a bit of a lightning rod nationally. Just a lot of people don't care for Brian Kelly. I didn't like Brian Kelly when he was the head coach at Notre Dame because I don't really like Notre Dame. I don't like the fact that Notre Dame plays by a different set of rules from everybody and that they don't have to be in a conference and they think they're the whole aura of Notre Dame just kind of turns me off. And that's why I didn't like Brian Kelly, because he was their coach. But I don't find him to be overly abrasive. I think he treated the local media here in Baton Rouge very well. I think some of his dad jokes aren't that funny, and I get that he does yell at some players on the sideline, but so does just about everybody. Nick Saban yelled a lot on the sideline. I'm a little bit perplexed at the disdain for Brian Kelly nationally, and it feels like that's what this column is rooted in. I got the Will Wade thing. I understand. He's cocky. He's arrogant. He's on the recording. I get it. People didn't like Will Wade. That makes a ton of sense. I'm not as crystal on the Brian Kelly disdain and why that follows him around, but it felt like that this story was written because of that. Am I far off on this, Beck? I know that you read some of it. I didn't find it to be something that had a central issue that it was drilling home on. It was basically just kind of things are kind of iffy. Like, that was what I read.
Yeah, I think that the article is trying to I don't know that it's trying to push a narrative, but I do think that it is clearly, pushing the main point of the article is just to say that there's question marks at LSU.
Yeah. Which they're 8-4. If they win the game on Saturday, I don't think there's any issue. I mean, anybody debating that,
right? So there's question marks at almost every college football program. You could probably write that article about Alabama right now.
Well, I saw. One of the pieces to this, and I did a segment on this a couple of weeks ago, so it's not as if I didn't bring it up either. But he talks about the fact that the class from 2 years ago, a lot of guys have transferred out.
Yeah.
Newsflash:
it happens
everyone's transferring all over the place. So I don't think that's not some kind of crazy thing. My point when I actually referenced the class was talking about how few of those guys are stars at this point.
Yeah.
He was just saying, well, they've had 11 guys transfer. Well, no joke. Everybody's got 11 guys that are transferring. I don't think that's a news to anybody moving forward. So again, I'm going to give this another read after the show. It's always a little bit dangerous to try to read something in a break and then comment on it publicly. But I felt like I got enough of it to kind of chat about it briefly, and I think there are a lot of people that haven't read it yet and that will read it in the coming hours and maybe the coming days. Again, there are some times where I read something and I go, that's poor work, but I don't think Ralph Russo did a bad job here. He talked to 8 people. He got Charles Turner on the record. He brought up some actual instances with the discussion with Chris Hilton on the sideline at Florida. He talked about the recruiting class and some guys leaving, talked about Mike Denbrock and Joe Sloan and why the offense, there is enough meat on the bone that you can see kind of where he's going. But I was looking for something to punch a little harder than just, they've lost 4 games in year 3. That's not super awesome. And I think that everyone is aware around here that there have been some mistakes made. That first staff had some misses, there's no doubt. But I also think it's reasonable to suggest that he's patched a lot of those holes with some really quality coaches. And this is where I little bit zag when everyone seems to be zigging. There is a lot of noise in this town, in this fan base, on the internet about the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. And I think it's a little bit too pronounced. I think that LSU did some bad things offensively in those 3 games. But I also think that the LSU offense is a long way away from broken. And I think the quarterback is a long way away from bad. I was disgusted. Now, I've talked about this a lot as well. You can't trust 20,000 drunk kids to make really good decisions. But the Boo Birds that came out during starting lineups on Saturday for the quarterback really rubbed me the wrong way. But I just don't really get it. Like, Jared Nussmeyer's not going to win the Heisman this year, but he's had a pretty good season.
Yeah.
I mean, he was great on Saturday. He completed 76%, didn't turn it over, got LSU into the right run plays, according to Brian Kelly. I thought he was great in crunch time of the Ole Miss game to will LSU to a victory. I thought he was great for the most part at leading LSU back against South Carolina, against a really good defense. We can always talk about how the South Carolina lost its starting quarterback. Their defense was still out there in that game, and LSU scored 38. So I think that there's some noise around the offensive coordinator and quarterback that's probably too pronounced for me, but Russo talked about that in the story as well. Look, there's no question that Brian Kelly is going to be graded on the entirety of his work in Baton Rouge, and right now, it's not good enough. You wasted a just phenomenal offense. I hate the word generational. A phenomenal offense because you had a terrible defense last year because you hired a bad staff. And this year, you're going to lose 4 or 5 games, and that's bad. But I don't think that is closing the book on the Brian Kelly era. Billy Napier's had a heck of a worse run than Brian Kelly has, and everybody thinks they're on the fast track success now after the last 2 weeks. So I don't know. I thought the article would have a little bit bigger punch than it did. I'll let you folks that read it be the judge of that in the coming hours and days. But yeah, they got to win some more games. No question about that. All right, let's come back with Denton Day, SiriusXM's College Football Overtime. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Man, I got a chance to get behind the wheel of a Genesis a couple of weeks ago when I was at the dealership. It is such a first-class vehicle. They're so sleek. They are so stylish. They are so safe. Look great. Drive exceptionally well. If you haven't test-driven a Genesis or been inside a Genesis, I would just highly recommend you put it on the list the next time you're in the market for a new vehicle. You're probably going to be on Airline Highway anyway. Stop in at Airline in Pico across from Women's Hospital and drive a Genesis. It is truly a luxury vehicle. And when I say luxury, I don't want you to immediately go, well, I can't afford that. Just go by and try. The Genesis model is a luxury brand at a reasonable price. And it's going to be incredibly safe and stylish as well. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every single new purchase, 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. 10 years, 100,000 miles on the warranty at Genesis of Baton Rouge. genesisofbatonrouge.com.
There it is, the extra mile. On the border of expected and extraordinary. For those willing to go further. Like vans customized for work or play. With safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 9.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Drama in the Bahamas for the LSU women's basketball team. It's about 15 hours after the LSU men at the Greenbrier won a triple overtime game. The ladies, with some drama of their own, they get out alive. They beat Washington at the buzzer. Kaylin Gilbert makes a layup to give LSU a 1-point win at the Horn, 68-67. The Tigers fell behind by 13 at the end of the first quarter, clawed their way back and beat Washington by 1 in the Bahamas. So their first real test of the season, and it was ugly for a while there, but they passed it. LSU women moved to 6-0. They are ranked 7th in the country. All right, let's talk some college football. Denton Day, SiriusXM college football overtime with us every single Monday. Joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Denton, how we doing?
Hunt, I'm good, man. What a weekend for the SEC. How about that?
Let's start there, I guess. We'll talk Indiana, Ohio State, sure, but let's start in the SEC. What was the most impactful result that you saw in the Southeastern Conference? There are probably 3 to choose from.
It had to be Alabama getting thumped the way that they did. You know, you can make an argument in certain games for losing, right? Especially in the SEC. Like, that's the whole point of the argument that had been made this week when everyone was debating Indiana versus the teams in the SEC, that everybody in that conference is really good, or, well, everyone other than like Kentucky and Mississippi State.
Yes.
But the argument is that everyone in that conference is good, but then to put up 3 points and not find the end zone once against Oklahoma. And I like Brett Venables' defense. I think he's done a really good job on that side of the football at Oklahoma this year, but you can't get into the end zone once. So that was a very, very bad loss as far as I'm concerned. Not the worst that we've seen this season by any stretch, but given the context and given that you'd already lost 2 games and all of the conversation, which isn't Alabama's fault by any stretch, but all the conversation this week about how much better that conference is, to then go and lose to Oklahoma like that, that one was rough.
It's just inexplicable to me that they could play that poorly. I mean, the Jalen Milroe that I watched with my own eyes inside Tiger Stadium, just 3 weeks later looking like that is hard to imagine. He ran for like 7 yards and threw 3 interceptions.
I mean, he's more hot and cold than Katy Perry in like 2011 or whatever that song came out. I mean, he's so all over the place because you're right. You see that game against LSU and you're like, this is the guy that we thought was going to be in contention for the Heisman. And then just a couple of weeks later, he can't do literally anything. I mean, he was like 11 of 26. I don't even know if he threw for 100 yards. Like, it was awful what he was doing. They just could not get anything going offensively. And we know they have talent. I was so perplexed. I was laughing because watching Alabama lose is still funny to me, but I was so perplexed with what I was seeing because it was such a difference from what we'd seen over the past couple weeks.
What do you think of Kalen DeBoer? I mean, obviously, I don't think things are real peachy in Tuscaloosa at this point, but do you feel really good about his ability to lead that program?
Yeah, I still feel good about him. I mean, you kind of understood that at some point there was going to be a punch in the mouth. I mean, you're taking over for Nick Saban, and then like half of the roster jumps into the portal. And you keep a lot of those guys or some of those guys, but you lose so much of that roster. I think if you give him some time, I think he's going to be all right. I actually would argue that they might be a little bit ahead of schedule because they could still find their way into the college football playoff. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Their job just got their life got a lot more difficult in that process based on this loss.
Lane Kiffin, this is probably the most talented Ole Miss team in 5 decades, and they lose their 3rd game. You're talking about losses to a Florida team that's around 500 and a bad Kentucky team sandwiched around beating Georgia. I mean, it's just a bizarre season. What do you make of it?
This is so Lane Kiffin. I mean, you lose that game to Kentucky. and then they lose in wild fashion to LSU, but they beat Georgia, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, playoff, back on the board, and then he's having this conversation, hey, guys, we need to make sure everybody tries. We don't want anybody to avoid the SEC championship game when we know he's trying to avoid it because he doesn't want that third loss. And then not only do they go out and lose, but they go out and lose to a team that he had been rumored to take the job of if Billy Napier got fired. I was like, you got to be kidding. This is so, like, it's storybook in the weird, it's like a storybook ending if you're on acid. Like, it's so all over the place. I kind of felt bad for Jackson Dart, kind of. He throws that interception that wasn't an interception, but then you see him get emotional, and then it's ruled not an interception. You're like, wait a second, all right, here Jackson Dart comes with redemption, and then he throws a worse interception. I mean, he was not good in the fourth quarter. I mean, this is like the Lane Kiffin experience, though. That's what it's been for Ole Miss.
My take on it was, and look, Lane is stubborn and he's set in his ways, but he learned from Nick Saban, who very much was flexible towards the end of his career in going with the tempo and embracing the transfer portal. And he changed. And Lane Kiffin, he believes so firmly in going for these fourth downs. But he had a great defense, and he didn't want to trust them. He just wanted to go score. And I feel like it hurt him on Saturday, not getting points in the red zone when he's trying to snap it to Pegues. Do you think he'll ever back off of that if he's got a defense that's this good again?
I mean, I sure hope so, because I'm with you. Like, sooner or later, these coaches, because we've seen such a rise in the amount of coaches that play that aggressive style of we're going to go for it on fourth down, we're going to go for twos, even if it's like a 4th and 6, we're going to go for it. I mean, Dan Lanning lost 2 games to Washington doing that last year. He kind of has learned for it, although they did take a punt 2 weeks ago, and you're like, what is he doing? But these coaches need to kind of understand that there is some sort of pride in doing it at the right time, not every time. And like the Madden approach, I call it the Madden approach. I've never punted in Madden in my life. What am I, a dork? Like, I'm going for it on fourth down, but that's a video game. Like, you shouldn't be doing that on Saturday in Gainesville. You're right, because you got a defense. Trust your defense.
Get some points. He had 2 chances to kick field goals and didn't want to do it. All right, let's go to the Big Ten. What do you make of Indiana's situation now? Did they do enough to stay in? Did all the help they got help? I mean, where are they?
The answer to that at 3 was no. And then the answer to that after everyone in the SEC lost was yes, because of that. Like, you have to fill the 12 teams. And at that point, like, if I'm a 3-loss SEC team, you're either looking at a 1-loss Indiana team, or you're looking at a 2-loss ACC team, because either SMU or Miami is going to end up with 2 losses. But tomorrow, both those teams are likely going to be in the top 12. So now I guess the conversation, if you're a fan of the SEC, is now directed towards them on trying to prove that we as a conference are better than the ACC. I think Indiana's still going to get in. I don't think they looked particularly great, but we kind of knew this was going to happen, right? Like, the idea of 12 teams has been fun because some of these games during the late stretch of the season that maybe wouldn't have meant something, like, for example, number 9 Ole Miss versus unranked Florida, did have a lot of meaning to it, but we knew that, like, the 11th seed is not going to win. There's maybe 4 teams. I think it's probably 3 teams that can win a national championship. So, like, we're getting to the point where we're just arguing with teams that we know are more likely than not going to get beat up pretty bad in the first round.
Yeah, to that point, and how do you think – we know how Indiana matches up with Ohio State, not very well. But how does Indiana match up, in your opinion, with Tennessee or Ole Miss or Penn State or Miami or Clemson?
Tennessee, I would say they match up maybe better than people expect. I'm kind of off on that offense. I just don't think Nico I's been all that impressive. Defensively, they've been okay, but I'm not over the moon with Tennessee the way that other people seem to be. Some of those other teams, I mean, Miami, I don't think they stand a chance. Miami has another gear. As long as Mario Cristobal doesn't get in his own way, that's a team that does have the potential, I think, to win a championship. I mean, that is their only flaw, or at least their big, massive flaw right now, is that their coach is kind of a goof sometimes on the sideline. They have their quarterback.
Did we lose Denton there?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying something.
No, that's
on me.
You're good. Yeah, I mean, they have a quarterback that's really good.
Yeah, they have a quarterback. The thing with Indiana is they're a great story, and they're a great team in terms of, like, the way that their locker room is situated. Like, they love each other, and that's great. But eventually you have to be better than the teams that have a lot of talent. And they are not built right now to where they are a top talented team in the nation. So once you get to these games that where everybody has talent, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble.
What do you think about South Carolina and Clemson coming up at 11 o'clock on Saturday? Clemson's at home. They're a 2.5-point favorite, but South Carolina's playing really as well as anybody in the SEC, quite frankly.
I mean, this has so much juice. When was the last time that Clemson, South Carolina was the biggest game on rivalry weekend? Because I think it's going to be. You know, Ohio State and Michigan, obviously that rivalry goes deep, but Michigan's not very good. If Ohio State doesn't beat them by 14 or more, it's going to be a disaster, I would think, for Ryan Day. Like, they should go out there and smoke them. Auburn, Alabama might be interesting because if Auburn gives them another loss, then you're officially done from the college football playoff. But the Clemson and South Carolina thing, you know, if we're going to have conversations about 3-loss teams getting into the college football playoff, and now that there's a bunch of SEC teams that have 3-loss teams, South Carolina needs to be put in that conversation. And I think by the end of it, if they beat Clemson this weekend and you stack up resume for resume, looking at 3-loss teams, like South Carolina's going to have a pretty good resume. I don't know that they'll jump a team like Alabama, but they'll at least be in the conversation in a way that they've never been in the college football playoff era. So that rivalry has a lot of juice. And if they beat Clemson, I mean, that pretty much, I guess Clemson could still get to the ACC championship, but any hope of them getting an at-large bid, if that wasn't already dead, is then 6 feet under. So that rivalry is actually the game I'm most looking forward to this weekend.
You give Southern Cal any chance against Notre Dame in L.A.?
God, I hope so. How funny would that? How funny would that be? We said so many good things about Notre Dame because their offense looks good, and then they turn around and lose to USC. Oh, that'd be perfect.
We'll see. That one coming up at 2:30 on CBS on Saturday. Denton, have a great Thanksgiving, man. We'll talk next week.
I appreciate it, man. Happy Thanksgiving.
He's Denton Day, college football overtime on Sirius XM, with us every single Monday on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Lady Tigers get a win at the buzzer. We talked about that at the top of that segment there, but if you missed it, they were down the entire game and came back and hit a buzzer beater to win it and remain unbeaten on the season. They're down there in the Bahamas. We'll come back and close out a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, AVSSLA.com is the website. Nothing is more important than the security of your home and your family. And for us in the Palmer house, it was an easy decision. We went with Audio Video Security Solutions to make that happen. Mitchell Fisher came out to the house, assessed our situation. We talked through a budget, told him what we were looking for. They made it happen 2 days later. Came out, brought the cameras with him, installed those front door, back door, got the app all set up so we can activate and deactivate the burglar alarm remotely. We can monitor the front yard and backyard at all times on the app on our cell phone. I just saw that my inflatable, the big Grinch sign that's in the front yard, it blew over. So I'm going to have to deal with that when I get home. But I was able to see that on my app right there, thanks to the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions. It's got a burglar alarm attached to it, all the cameras as well. We don't pay any cloud storage fees or anything. It's been fantastic, and the customer service after the installation has been great as well. So if you want that security system put in at your home or at your office, call the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions or check them out online, avssla.com. Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com.
When you can't rely on technology, you can rely on Mountain Cold Refreshment.
Dave's back on.
Coors Light. Choose chill.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Congratulations to Jesse Sanchez from Bell Rose. Jesse is the Week 13 winner in our 2024 College Football Pick'em Contest and wins a Hooters wing party for 10 people. Don't forget to make your picks for the final round by this Thursday at noon. Last week for this season-long contest, so make sure you don't forget. Weekly winners will receive the Hooters wing party. We already got the weekly winners, but the first place season-long champion, who will be crowned after next week, will receive a 75-inch 4K flat screen TV and soundbar, plus free Hooters wings for an entire year. It's the 2024 College Football Pick'em Contest presented by Hooters.
How would you grade that promo?
Well, probably a 3.
3 out of 10.
Sometimes I try to just like go off script a little bit, and sometimes it doesn't work. So it didn't work that time.
Speaking of someone who never ever makes a mistake on the air, that's pretty pitiful.
Yes,
I'm
that's
always
true.
just
You're always perfect.
Never get tongue tied at all. And
Never
never
happens.
slur any words, forget names. That kind of stuff just
Yeah.
never goes on. Always a perfect delivery. You just basically I'm Bob Costas. Basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah, or not. All right, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
All right, first one here.
These names on the Feinbaum Show are absurd. The last guy was named like Detour, and this
Swamp
is
Dog?
Swamp Dog from Waycross, Georgia.
Wow.
Who are these people? It's 2:50 on a
They're
Monday.
all just old. They're all just old retired
Go
men.
to work.
They're
Stop
all
calling
old-
the Feinbaum Show under the name Swamp Dog.
They're all old retired men. That's what they do. They listen to Feinbaum and just like to yell at him. All right, first one here.
Swamp Dog.
Four-star linebacker Zach Weeks, the younger brother of Witt and West, has reclassified to the class of 2025, and he's committed to LSU. The Weeks brothers, take it or leave it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
I guess this is probably some pretty concrete evidence that Whit Weeks is going to stay at LSU. There was certainly never a rumor he was going to leave, but like you always have to leave that possibility open with every player in every sport in college now because of the transfer portal. But when your brother commits and says he's going to come play with you, like I feel like it's pretty unlikely that you're going to jump ship at that point. So I think if I'm looking at players that I know will be on the team next year for LSU, I think I can go ahead and put Whit Weeks on there. West played a little bit more on Saturday. Got a little bit of run at linebacker. Greg Penn came off the field a little bit, and they played Devon Keys at linebacker as well, so they used a little bit more bodies at linebacker. I think the Weeks are some talented dudes, and so I'll take them.
All right, next one here. The Pelicans will more than likely get C.J. McCollum back. He is probable for their 6 o'clock tip in Indianapolis. They'll finally get a win. Take it or leave it.
Leave it. They still don't have half the guys.
Well, yes, that's true. They still are missing Zion. They're still missing Herb Jones. They're still missing DeJounte Murray.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No, it's not. That's most of the salary.
Yeah, it
most
is.
of the salary cap there.
Yeah, and apparently Zion's out getting tattoos, and he's
saw that.
looking a little flabby.
Little pudgy?
Not exactly. Looks like he's
that is a big tattoo. Did you see the tattoo?
It is very large.
That is a lot of ink.
It's a lot.
Because you realize that it's his entire back, which is a lot of ink, and then you realize that he's like 6'8".
Yeah.
So that's just a lot of tattoo. What does that cost? I have no perspective on tattoo costs.
I think it's probably not cheap, considering he probably got like a pretty
Are we thinking this is like
artist?
a $12,000 tattoo?
Oh, I don't know.
I have no idea. Is this a $3,100 tattoo? Like, I have no idea what the market is on tattoos these days.
I don't either, but I would guess that considering how large it is and that he probably got a pretty reputable artist to do it,
How long do you have to sit there while they etch your back?
It's a long time, for sure. It's a giant tattoo, so it probably took a while.
It just seems like a lot. But
yeah,
hey, that's what you want to do. Get after it, Zion.
Yeah, I guess, but still not a great look. I guess you're not playing because you have a hamstring strain and you're out getting tattoos and looking a little bit out of shape in the process.
What do you expect?
What do you expect?
That's what I expect.
Yeah, that's what we expect.
Now the caller on the Fine Bomb Show is Greg from
That's
Enterprise.
nice.
So no more Swamp Dog. He must have hung up.
All right, last one here.
Swamp Dog.
Last one, Wicked the movie. As you said, you went and saw it. Take it or leave it.
I did go see it yesterday. I'll take it. It was fine. It is long. It's like 3 hours, but I got a couple of beverages, and we passed the time.
I've heard is it going to be a part one?
Oh, yeah, it's part one. Like the
wow.
last scene, they sing the song, and then like they haven't even gotten the credits up, and it goes like part 2 coming. Like
lovely.
They've already got that.
So 3
set up.
hours is part one.
Yeah, part one.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of singing.
It is a musical.
It is, and but I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I know my wife enjoyed it a lot. I was impressed with the physical ability of the cast. I thought that the two leads, in terms of their choreography and the singing ability, and then like dancing while singing and all that kind of stuff, I thought it was really impressive stuff.
Wow, what a great review, Honda.
I'm basically Roger Ebert.
Yeah, I mean,
what's Siskel's first name?
Siskel and Ebert, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. Yeah,
Roger
Gene's
Ebert.
still kicking it. Roger, rest in peace. But yeah, that's a really.
Raj kicked the bucket.
Oh yeah, that's years ago.
Oh well, I hate to hear that.
Really sad.
Who's reviewing movies now?
Well, Gene Siskel still does it, I think.
Okay. What do you think about Heavyweights, the movie? That's really the question.
Yeah, really, that's a childhood favorite, but probably not going to be winning any kind of awards at any point.
Did Rotten Tomatoes do to Siskel and Ebert what like Netflix did to Blockbuster?
I don't know, but we have 3 seconds.
We got 3 seconds.
So.
See you tomorrow.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Property and casualty or group employee benefits. Your one-stop shop for all things insurance is, of course, the Highland Insurance Group. If you're a business owner and you don't have a great relationship with your insurance broker, they're just the guy who came with the lowest premium number, that's one way to handle it, but it might not be the best way, especially when something happens. Whether it's a hurricane or a car accident or a cyber breach or a lawsuit or an injury. When that happens, you're going to need your insurance to respond. And if you only have the insurance in place because it was the cheapest one, it may not. Jonathan Carver and his team can be a trusted advisor and a part of your team as a business to make sure that your business continues to run even if the event happens. Give them a call or check them out online, HighlandIG.com. They're right here in Baton Rouge, but they can help you out statewide. It's Jonathan Carver and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at HighlandIG.com.